On the night of May 25th, 1893, a series of murders were about to take place in Osaka that were so sensational, so salacious, so undeniably horrifying that a local Bon dance would thereafter be performed in the area almost yearly, retelling that brutal night in which 10 lives were taken before their time. It came to be known as the Kawachi 10 assassinations, a horrific act committed by 2 men on those who had wronged them. The 2 men about to murder 10 unsuspecting victims were Kido Kumataro, 36, and his underling Tani Yagoro. Kido, a professional gambler, was married to Onui, 19, who it turned out had been having an affair with a man by the name of Matsunaga Torajiro. Torajiro was the younger brother of Matsunaga Denjiro, a man of great influence in their village. It's unknown how, but Kido came to learn of the affair and was naturally outraged at this development. His first response wasn't to go straight from zero to murder, however. He took the far more logical step of threatening to divorce Onui. However, Onui's mother, Otora, threatened him right where it hurt, his wallet. "You promised that you would send us money every month while you and Onui were together, and yet you never sent anything at all. If you are going to break up, then you must pay us back everything first." It's important to remember that matters such as this were often handled financially at the time. If one wanted to break off a relationship, it was generally done by paying a type of fee to the other party, or their family, and so the breakup was handled cleanly. Both parties would go their separate ways amicably, and that was that. And so, Kido had little choice. He had to pay Onui's mother the money he promised. This was easier said than done, however, because Kido didn't have fixed employment and made most of his money from gambling. It was here that matters took an unfortunate turn. A turn that would change the course of numerous lives forever. Kido had to come up with the money to pay Onui's mother, and fast. He remembered that he had previously lent Denjiro a healthy sum of money when he was in much better financial shape, and so he decided to hit up the older brother of the man his wife was cheating with in order to get that money back to pay off his wife's family. Then he could be rid of all of them for good. Denjiro's choice, however, forced a hand that perhaps few saw coming. He claimed not to remember ever borrowing this money off Kido, but rather than just sending him off with nothing to show for it, Denjiro sent several of his subordinates to teach Kido a lesson for even trying. These Matsunaga men beat Kido to within an inch of his life and then left him for dead. The Matsunaga family had taken not only his wife, but his money as well, and then beat him half to death over it. There was, in Kido's mind, only one way to respond to these dishonorable, despicable actions: murder. Kido stayed at Tani's house while he recuperated from his beating. Only one thought consumed him, and that thought was revenge. Kido was so intent on carrying out his actions that he even constructed his own tombstone while he was still alive. A tombstone that still stands today. Then he travelled around Kyoto, Nara, and Osaka collecting weapons. A Japanese sword, a cane sword, and a hunting gun. Having recovered, built his own tombstone, an indication of his resolve to see this through to the death, and procured his weapons, Kido was finally ready to carry out his revenge. On the night of May 25th, 1893, it was windy and raining heavily. Kido picked this date for a good reason. It was the same date that local hero Masanari died in a spectacular death in the Battle of Minatogawa in 1336. Kido was especially proud of this local legend and wished to die on the same day as him. Kido and Tani approached the home of the Matsunaga family where Onui and her mother were also staying. The plan was simple: kill anyone who was inside. Yes, even those unrelated to the affair or the beating Kido took. They were, at the end of the day, all Matsunagas. They had to go. It's unknown exactly what went on in the house after Kido and Tani entered. What we do know is that Denjiro was brutally killed, with some local reports claiming his head and insides were removed. Denjiro's wife, 2 of their children, and the family of Denjiro's oldest son were also killed, as were Onui and her mother. In all, 10 people lost their lives. The 2 men spared no one, and they reportedly carried out the deaths in the most painful ways possible. Yet despite all of this, the one man that Kido wanted revenge on most of all, Torajiro, was nowhere to be seen. He was away in Kyoto on this particular day for work, and so he managed to escape. Before leaving, Kido and Tani set the house on fire, and then fled to nearby Mount Kongo, just as Masanari did on the day he died. Again, what exactly happened to the 2 men after that remains unknown. After all, both men were found dead, as had been their intention all along. Or at least, it was Kido's intention all along. Police were notified the next morning of the incident at the Matsunaga house. Backup from Osaka quickly arrived, and police immediately made their way to Mount Kongo, where they believed the culprits had escaped. They found numerous villagers on the way who had shared food with the 2 men as they fled. Police searched and searched, but it wasn't until 2 weeks later that they finally found the men. Or, at least, their bodies. Tani was found lying dead with his feet pressed against a cedar tree. He had been shot in the back. Police theorized that he perhaps had a disagreement with Kido and planned to turn himself in, causing Kido to shoot him as he tried to leave. Kido then turned the gun on himself and shot himself in the chest, ending his own life as well. With that, their murderous rampage came to an abrupt end. Including a pregnant woman's child, 13 lives were ended, and only Torajiro, who happened to be in another city at the time, was left to pick up the pieces. The very same year the murders took place, the incident was turned into both a play and a novel. Iwai Umekichi was a rickshaw driver for the police who investigated the incident, but he was also a big fan of ondo, a type of folk song and dance performed by a group. Iwai wanted to turn the incident into a song, but struggled to come up with lyrics for it. He turned to a friend, Matsumoto Kichisaburo, who helped him, and together they wrote a song in the Kawachi ondo style. Then, 1 month after the incident, they performed the Kawachi ondo Grudge of the White Scabbard at Nakaza Theatre in Doton Body. It was a massive hit, and the rest, as they say, is history. The incident became famous all over the country and has been adapted into numerous songs, plays, and novels over the decades since. Kido's tombstone still stands in a cemetery on Mount Kongo today, although the inscription he engraved on the side has since weathered away and become illegible. He died well over 100 years ago now, but the story of that fateful night in which he and a friend murdered 10 people lives on today, ensuring that none of them have ever been forgotten. But what did you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.